ego. Some people just love. Or use your marbles permanently. There's all kinds of. There's like joy, happiness, connection, tranquility, ego. Whatever.
But you talk to
The brain, you get stigmatized for it.
love and happiness and joy, connection, tranquility.
You were trying to be somebody that you aren't. Since they were a kid, the Garden of Eden is inside everybody. It's inside everybody.
Hello, listener. It's your buddy Steve. Welcome to Project C.L.A.R.E, a playoff of Project D.A.R.E. C.L.A.R.E is an acronym standing for Communicating Life-Altering Recreational Experiences.
Drugs. Some of the big kids do them. But my mom and dad helped get this D.A.R.E anti-drug program in our school.
It's run by specially trained police.
Now we're saying no to drugs.
Growing up in the late 90s, Project D.A.R.E was an anti-drug use program, and their mission to get kids to resist drugs and violence. Really not a bad goal at all. However, according to a study done by the Department of Rehabilitation Counseling at Virginia Commonwealth University, that project was a failure. The word used in their conclusion was ineffective.
You have the power. Dare to take care of yourself.
Looking back, it felt too simple and too black and white. So, that's where I come in. Join me as we explore the good, the bad, and the otherworldly. But first, I once knew someone. It was a brisk, cold Friday in the high altitudes of the Adirondack Mountains. Classes had just let out. Students of the college's forestry program rejoiced that their favorite holiday fell on a Friday this year. Exiting out of the campus's only entrance laid a curvy road overlooking the vistas. A road that was home for many commuters of this isolated campus. Inside these homes, juniors and seniors rummaged through their mostly unpacked luggage cases for articles of clothing that could pass as period-accurate Viking outfits. Tonight was Halloween night, and everyone was heading to Java Barn. To get to Java Barn, students must head all the way down the mountains, which is about an hour's drive. It's located within the confines of St. Lawrence University on the outskirts of Canton, New York. But don't let the name fool you. It was a college-owned concert space. It was a space where ska bands played their tie-dye trombones, decked out in their furry-rimmed cheetah print coats and cool guy sunglasses. Doused in bright neon drip, students from other upstate colleges poured their steel reserves and natty ice into the very conspicuous red Solo cups. Tonight was Halloween, and the students were ready to party. As the parking lot was filling up, a group of poorly dressed Vikings poured out of a royal blue colored minivan. Their designated driver waved them off, turned up his radio, and reclined back. One of the students, wearing nothing but a flannel shirt, baggy jeans, and a plastic Viking helmet, was ecstatic for the night he was about to have, for he had just acquired an entire vial of acid from his organic chemistry professor that very morning. He had already done a few drops prior to his arrival, but he knew if he timed it right, the little chemical teardrops he placed on his tongue would kick in just in time for the second band and his favorite, Wheatfield Fences. He put the vial in his pocket and ventured into the costume crowd. The air above in the crowd felt hot. There was barely any ounce of cold breeze to share, but a little sweat didn't matter. The second band was just about to start, yet everything looked normal. No waves, no distorted faces. There was this feeling, some feeling of euphoria. But is it just from that warm beer? Maybe it was from that overstuffed spliff his friend torched on the way there? When he looked around at the faces of the crowd, he expected to see the clocks of the persistence of memory. He pulled the vial from his flannel pocket, held it up to the neon light beams bouncing around, and inspected it. But without much more thought, he took the vial and tilted it downward onto his tongue once more. A few drops wouldn't hurt. He once took 3 drops a few months prior, and that night went mostly fine. As Wheatfield Fences jammed on, so too did the crowd. hot air above began to slowly form into a multicolored, thick haze. A haze so heavy that the student could feel it pushing down on his shoulders. Just before coming to the realization that he had taken too much, it was too late. The vial was in his hand, and he was holding it over his protruding tongue. He squinted through the thick glass, noticing how much clearer it was than when he had first arrived. But instead of the typical bad trip that everyone else has, he couldn't help but be excited to see Wheatfield Fences finally play. The night was almost at an end. The expected encore had just finished up. The lead singer wished the sleepy crowd a good night. People of the crowd dispersed and shuffled their way past the large garbage can, throwing their empties towards it. The show, and even more tragically, Halloween night, was over. The group of costume Vikings from Paul Smith piled back into the van. The sleeping designated driver pulled his seat back up, cracked open his sugar-free Red Bull, turned on the ignition. He glanced into his rear view mirror and noticed something was off. A seat was open. He got out and headed towards the venue entrance. He peered inside and saw the mostly empty, harshly lit dance floor. I say mostly empty because in the middle of that dance floor stood the student. His upper back was hunched forward. His legs were rocking back and forth slowly. His neck was extended like he was squinting at something, yet his eyes were wide shut. The student approached him and nudged his shoulder. "Hey man, you good? We're heading back." "I'm good. We'll leave as soon as Wheatfield plays." "They played, dude. Damn. Professor Hayes must have made some pretty potent acid. How much did you take?" "Did you share some?" "You took the whole vial?" "I'm good." Do you want to go to the emergency room?" "We'll leave as soon as Wheatfield plays." The driver grabbed the student's arm, pulling him away. He could barely stand, limping his way as the driver guided him. He was just so overwhelmed by the visuals, he couldn't keep his eyes still. The trunks of the trees widened, the parking lot stretched out. They were coming up to the car, and a friend in the backseat popped his head from the window.
"Hurry up! Hey, hurry up! Hurry up! Hey, Grandma, hurry up!"
The driver chuckled, opened up the car's back door, and hastily helped him into his seat. The students headed their way back up the mountain. While the majority of the students joined in on some car karaoke, the student rested his head back on the cushioned headrest, and he closed his eyes, for Wheatfield Fences was about to hop on stage any minute, and he couldn't be more excited. I once knew someone. He was nicknamed Grandma, and he once took a fuck ton of acid.
I would tell myself not to take as much as you're about to take. Take like a fifth of that, or eat a cat, or don't do it at all. My name is Skillet because what I do has a title in manufacturing, so that's what I do now, and I'm a part-time musician. I grew up playing post-hardcore and then transitioned into like pop punk, acoustic pop, folk, all that kind of stuff. So at the time, the only mind-altering substance I had ever consumed was alcohol, and I had no interest in smoking weed or anything like that, but I had a growing interest in LSD in particular. I thought that it was going to help me write better music. That actually isn't what I got out of it at all. I was living with my girlfriend at the time in Buffalo and going to spend time at my friend's house. We had bought some shrooms a couple weeks earlier, and we bought them at different times. The thing is, the people that we were buying it from thought we were splitting those and not that we were going to be taking the entire amount. So that was something that kind of went under their radar. I had still never smoked weed, and I had only tripped one time before that, so I hadn't had a spiritual thought in my entire life. So I was at my friend's house, and this place had a lot of people coming in and out. There was a lot of really popular people that lived there, and we weren't expecting to have very many people over. I was expecting it to be more like acid, so my expectations weren't even calibrated for the situation. But it turned out that a lot of people showed up right after we had taken everything that we took. If I'm not mistaken, we went out to the living room and just sat down, started hanging out, and we were like, whoa, bunch of people, but that's cool. So at this point, there's probably like 6, 7, maybe 8 people. There was 3 of us who took it, and we all went down to the basement to go watch some interesting stuff on the computer. So we go down there. Mind you, this computer is in a studio, so we have a lot of amps and guitars leaning on the wall way off to the side, which happens to be shrouded in darkness at this point. There was a dryer on the other side of the drywall in the basement, and it sounded like the whole room was vibrating. It just sounded like the whole thing was like and that probably added to like the paranoia and the anxiety. We went down there to try and enjoy something relaxing, but I couldn't focus on anything that we were watching, and I was really paranoid about the amps. They look like people crouching over in the corner, and I was like, are you guys not put off by the crouching people in the corner? And they're like, those are just amps. And I was like, I know, but they're people in the corner regardless, and I still don't like that. So I wound up leaving them, and I remember taking the blanket that we took down and trying to get up the basement stairs with it, and I was just pulling it up a dirt hill, and it was all covered in mud. It took forever to get up those stairs. At this point, I'm still like, I don't feel anything. Like, nothing's weird. I mean, I'm super paranoid and everything is awful, but I don't feel anything. So I remember going up, sitting down in the chair, watching Guitar Hero, and I kept seeing someone sit to my right, like a shadowy person, and every time I looked over, they weren't there anymore. So that kept messing with me, and then looking down at the bathroom, it was like the hallway became one long thing, and a bunch of arms started reaching out, and then I started to feel hands on my body, so I felt pressure all over, and I'm just sitting there like, bleh, and I start wringing my hands on the chair, and our buddy looks over and he goes, hey, how you feeling? I don't know, dude. I kind of think I don't like this. Don't say that, because like you're just starting, like you better have a better attitude than that. And I was like, I don't think I can. I'm not ready for this. I'm just going to go upstairs and try to sleep it off. So I start trying to get up those stairs, and that was when it really just took off. I'm climbing up the stairs, I'm taking the blanket, and it's even harder to get it up these because the basement stairs, they're wood, but these stairs were carpet, so they were holding on to the blanket so much more. Every time I pulled, it felt like it was pulling back, and I kept nodding off, so I keep closing my eyes, and then I was having these crazy visuals of just, I think my first one was flying through the sky over like a desert, and there were big nachos, big cheesy nachos, and giant cartoon fists coming out of the sky and smashing the nachos with their knuckles. It was the craziest shit, and I opened my eyes, and I was back on the staircase, and I looked down at everyone, and I tried to say something like,
help, I think I'm starting to die.
I think this is like the early symptoms of death, and I couldn't say anything. And then when I realized that even if I was in trouble, I wouldn't be able to ask for help, then I really started panicking, because I was like, okay, even if I'm not dying, this is a horrible situation to be in. I'm trying to like pull myself back up the stairs, and I managed to get up the staircase like 6 years later. I find myself in the bedroom, which we had just gotten done tracking drums in, so there's an entire drum set. Now imagine if I was that spooked by guitar amps in the studio, how an entire drum set looked to me while I'm trying to go and sleep off this super intense trip. It was awful. This was when I had like full-on ego death. Ego death is letting go of the things that you think make you you. So letting go of values that you hold that maybe not be relevant on a human level. So I close my eyes and I just see a lot of colors, and I can just feel the blanket all over my body, and I could hear everyone downstairs really well. So the combination of all these things are feeding into these closed eye hallucinations that I'm having. I take a step forward and I'm walking up a staircase. There's a door, I open it, and then I fall down, and when I land, I'm like a little kid, and then I get old really fast and I fall over, and then I slither out of my mouth like a snake, and then I'm swimming, and so it's just super overwhelming, just swinging from insane thought to insane thought with no bridge. Meanwhile, I hear my girlfriend at the time come in, who I did not tell that I was going to be doing this, and I know that, and I'm upstairs laying there like, oh my God. First of all, I can't remember what I did. I don't know what I took. I don't know why I feel this way, but I wasn't supposed to do it, and my girlfriend's here, and she's going to be mad. So I hear her downstairs talking to everyone, and I hear their conversations loop. So that's starting to get me, and then I start thinking that someone's bracelet that was jingling was a cop twirling around their handcuffs, and I keep thinking that there's a cop there to arrest me, and I'm like, well, what if I'm not even laying in bed? What if I'm driving right now and I'm being pulled over? There came a moment where I'm thinking just words individually and thinking, is that actually a word, or am I making that up right now? That chain of thought led me to thinking, who am I? Can I remember literally anything about my own life? If phase 2 was just like breaking it down to little kid basics as far as understanding and attitude, then 3 was just me having that exact mentality and vomiting it all over everything around me. My girlfriend walked up and was about to knock on the door, and I heard her walking up the stairs, and something got into me, and I shot up as fast as I could and ran over to the door. Mind you, I'm in my boxers, and I just whip open the door, and she's just standing there, and she's like, hey. And I look at her, and in retrospect, now I know that I thought she could hear what I was thinking. She was not picking up what I was putting down whatsoever. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. Okay? And she's like, I gave her a hug, and then I went downstairs. And after that, I'm pretty sure that I thought I was dreaming. One of the first crazy things that I did was grab the coal off the top of their hookah and then whip it behind the TV. So they had to go find the coal from behind the TV. I remember jumping up on the couch and licking the mirror because I was like, at least that's what I was thinking. I wasn't saying a fucking word. Some of the words that people do tell me that I said, because I was looking at canola oil. I looked at the stove, and one of the numbers was 5, and I was like, 5. I was just walking around, helicoptering it up. So it was just total id. Like, it was stream of consciousness, ridiculous shit. There was even a point, they were all coming in from outside. They left the door open, and I was like, that looks nice. And I went sprinting out of the front door of the house, like full speed across the road in my boxers. And I laid down in the grass to look up at the stars. Some guy that I had actually never met saw me. He was the only one that saw me and came running out after me and said, hey, something really cool is happening in the house. You gotta come check it out. And I stood up and I sprinted back into the house. I was like, dude, this guy's got the scoop. There's something sick going on inside. But thank God for that guy, because who knows if anyone would have known that I was gone. So my girlfriend showed up and was very upset, naturally, that she showed up, and her boyfriend was like catatonic and just hurting himself inadvertently by grabbing coals and shit. But she would just like talk to me. She was there to interact. Like, I remember the first time I said anything, I was looking at Sean and I go, that's Sean. So she goes, oh my God, he said something. And everyone claps. And then they point at our other friend who has a goatee and they go, who's that? And I go, who gives a goatee? She was kind of interacting with me like I was a little kid, which is accurate. And I guess she had been texting you, if I'm not mistaken.
The clock had just turned midnight. Back in 2014, I used to work second shift at a McDonald's out in the sticks of western New York. I had just gotten back from my hourly cigarette break, ready to close up the grill. I checked my phone and noticed a Facebook message from Chris's girlfriend at the time. Chris didn't have a phone and would usually use her account to get a hold of me.
Steve,
Hey, what's up?
have you talked to Chris?
I have not lately. Is everything all right?
Well, he's tripping on shrooms, and he keeps saying your name and other random names. I just don't know if you guys talked today or anything.
No, we have not. Is he bad tripping?
Kinda. Well, he finally had a good full sentence. He quotes, Steve is a pretty good guy. But then he keeps mentioning pregnancies. He said, it looks pretty damn good up here.
Oh my God, yes. So that was when the loops were starting to get tighter and tighter. And it was like, you guys look pretty good up here, because I was like in space, literally.
He's just rambling and walking around and not really making any sense.
My advice, you kind of just need to let him get through it. LOL.
Huh. It's interesting. Like, obviously, that is what it would look like, right? Like, I'm just walking around in my boxers going, holy canoil. And yeah, I probably look like a fucking insane person, but no. Everything, even though it was completely random, everything made sense to me. In retrospect, like, that was a way worse experience for her than I was willing to admit at the time, because I was just really bad at empathy before that experience, so this was definitely different. I can't imagine, honestly, what it was from her end. The come down was really abrupt, and it started right when that second song started. That's when I would say everything turned around, and it went from being awesome to being really weak. And I remember laying on the ground, the loops were getting exhausting, and the song ended and everyone was quiet. No one talked for a second, and I was like, finally, it's over. And then the next song started, and I immediately got nauseous. Recently, I had been licking the floor, perfectly okay, licking the hardwood floor. But the fact that another song started after everything was supposed to end made me nauseous, and everything after that felt like it wasn't supposed to be happening. They eventually, picked me up off of the floor. It took me upstairs. I don't even remember getting all the way up there before I was unconscious. So I wind up waking up, and this isn't my room. I'm looking around like, where am I? There's a drum set. There's a mattress on the floor. And I look down, and my girlfriend's next to me, and I can't tell if A, she's real, or B, who she is. She winds up saying, "Are you okay?" And it scared me so bad that I recoiled and said, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. And she was like, "What are you?" I was like, shut the fuck up. And I just rolled over and went back to sleep. I thought she was a hallucination, and I was like, I don't need this. I need to go back to bed. I'm done doing this. And when I woke up and she was still there, I was like, oh my fucking God. I just told her to shut the fuck up 6 times in a row. So she woke up. I was like, I don't know what happened. She was like, well, you did this and that, and you did all this. And she mentioned the first crazy thing, and I go, holy shit, that wasn't a dream. And immediately I realized everything I had done the night before actually happened, and it was instant panic. I started texting and messaging everyone who was there on Facebook, apologizing, and everyone was really cool about it, but I wasn't at all. I was really upset about how I behaved. But I would say that it felt like I woke up that next person as a brand new person, and not necessarily in like a good way or a bad way, but I basically had to figure out how to regulate everything internally all over again. It feels more like an accentuation of what it's like to have a really insightful day. You know, it's like taking a day where you're particularly grateful. I think gratefulness is like the perfect word. I just noticed that I appreciate things like art and architecture and nature. I just appreciate things so much more. I feel actually alive. You know, in no other setting do I feel more alive than when I am on LSD. I think that's like pretty safe to say for like everyone. As soon as you go back up, you're like, oh yeah, that's what life is, you know? It opens your eyes. I feel like it just makes you more able to identify patterns and things in your own life. Takes the ego out without destroying it. Shrooms is about showing you so many new things that it shatters your understanding. And acid is more like, hey, you're on a timeout, mister, and we gotta figure out why you're having so many meltdowns at work, okay? So you sit down and we're gonna think about your childhood and rearrange some neurons, and you're gonna shut the fuck up, and we're gonna listen to some Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. I have an EP, Great James and The Blank Slate, on Spotify or YouTube, and it's like a pop punk love letter, and it slaps, if I do say so myself, so check it out.
I want to thank my guest Skillet for communicating some of those life-altering experiences with us, and thank you for tuning in. Whether you stick with this reality or searching for another, safe travels through whichever one you choose to see. This has been your buddy Steve. You have now completed this lesson of Project C.L.A.R.E.
You know, a lot of people will tell you that drugs are cool and that everybody's doing them. And if you think that makes me uncool, you're wrong.